happened if somebody got really sick and they determined that there was no going back? The Taínos had a different viewpoint about death and dying. So they did not react the same way we would. It was known that they would abandon or take into the forest and leave their sick loved ones. And they did this in order to quicken the dying process so that the person who was ill could get to the other side. On some occasions, they would light un guaconax or un guaconejo, which is this type of wood that they would burn, and they would go into the night and leave the person because they believed that the night was the realm of the dead. Later on in my next episode, I'll explain a little bit more about their religious beliefs and how it connected to their funerary customs. But they were usually buried in a fetal position with their personal items broken in order to accompany them to the other side. And this was a general burial for the common indigenous person. They will also at times put them in the fetal position but sitting instead of laying down. But the caciques were buried in a very special way. I want to remind everybody that because the island was filled with different ethnicities, some of them had other funerary customs than the other groups had. I was able to find several different customs that the Taínos used in order to bury their caciques. One of the first funerary practices encountered by the Spanish was this one. The book Columbus, The Four Voyages by Lawrence Bergreen says the following, and this is quoted from Colon's diary. It says, "The seaman found in a house a man's head in a basket, covered with another basket and hanging to a post." It continues saying, now this is the author writing, according to their description, these dried heads were festooned about the settlement, forming a gruesome tableau. Columbus assumed that the object, and now this is quoted from his diary or his log, must be those of some ancestors of the family, because those houses were of a kind where many persons live in one, and they should be relations descended from only one. So this was really striking to them. However, since they had already been to many other places, many places in Africa and in other locations, they did know that other people had different kind of funerary practices, but this was eye-catching. We now know that this was a custom seen in other islands as well, where they would put the bones of their loved ones in the gourds and hang them from the ceiling. This practice is also found in their mythology, and it kind of explains why they did it as well. And I'll explain more about their mythology and their religious practices in the next episode. From my understanding, the way that this would happen was that when the person died, they would go and leave the body in the forest. They would let the body become skeletal, which in the tropical heat would be in a couple of weeks. They would go, recover the bones, clean them, and put them in the gourds. Bartolomé de las Casas also witnessed this custom, and he concluded the same thing. He said that it had to be somebody that was very important, very loved by everybody. So the gourd would be una jícara o un higuero o calabaza in the Spanish terms. That's what they would use to put the bones in. In the Taino legend, Yaya, who is the all-powerful being, puts his son, Yayael, into a gourd and hangs him from the ceiling of the cane.